使得喀布尔的机场撤离事件更加的困难。欢迎你回到第2小时文茜的世界周报，让我们来看恐攻之前。恐攻之前，机场其实不是机场，它像个难民营。每个人到那里只能带一份行李，然后呢，甚至有爸爸妈妈，他为了要逃出去，带着孩子到了机场，结果他们发现好像要逃出有困难，于是有记者亲眼见到父母抛下了小孩，因为他们认为塔利班不至于会杀孩子。其次，在当地就发生了一个太多人踩踏事件，甚至踩踏死了2岁的小孩。另外，在当地美国规定，你只可以拿围巾或是塑胶，可是天热得不得了，甚至是摄氏40度左右。为什么？因为他害怕他们在当地发生任何的恐攻事件，虽然最后不幸还是发生了。还有，要等多久？你要进到机场，有的时候要等2天多，就是你即使通过了所有塔利班的岗哨，要等2天多。有的人凌晨3点就来排队，整整等了2天。在当地也没有厕所可言，你可以离开去上厕所吗？那个地方就是厕所，它是一个人间炼狱，只为了想象中的天堂。
Let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home.
Would you commit to the same commitment? Would you make the same commitment to bring out Afghans who assisted in the war effort?
Yes, we're making the same commitment. There's no one more important than bringing American citizens out. I acknowledge that. But they're equally important almost is all those SIVs we call them, who in fact helped us.
这是拜登的承诺，他们信了，所以他们来了，来到喀布尔机场，通往梦想之地的最后希望。
It's been a week of peril, uncertainty, life and death decisions.
8月21号，在最接近自由的地方，发生了最遗憾的事。
This is an emergency now. It's nothing to do with process. They're just trying to save lives. Tens of thousands are trying to get through. At the front, they're being crushed. Paratroopers pulling people from the mayhem. Medics rushing from the next casualty to the next and the next. Dehydrated and terrified. The soldiers spray the crowd with a hose, anything to cool them down. Men, women, and lots of children. And then what we feared, the inevitable.
At least 20 people have died so far in the crush of the crowds, including one 2-year-old child, according to the New York Times. Her mother, a former U.S. military interpreter, trying to get out. Overnight, a gunman opened fire on Afghan forces, monitoring access to the airport gate, killing at least one Afghan soldier and wounding several more. U.S. Central Command said no U.S. or coalition service members were injured. Each day brings more bodies in the street, and those who succumb to the brutal summer heat, forced to wait in the open for days. There are no bathrooms. The entire area is an open toilet. Taliban fighters watch on. Even they seem stunned by the situation.
These satellite images show the huge crowds trying to leave the airport.
几天来，机场周围一直是混乱的中心。在8月15号，塔利班进城后，成千上万的美国人及阿富汗人试图挤上飞往自由的班机。然而，等他们千辛万苦到了机场，在他们面前的却多半不是幸福快乐的结局。
Everywhere looks like a refugee camp in a disaster movie, but this is reality.
At Kabul airport, British and US troops work together to control the crowd.
What you're seeing now is basically if you go that way, you're going to the United States. And if you go that way, you're going to Britain.
And it is absolutely dreadful. They're penned in. This is the American section of the processing chain. Higher security alerts means there's no movement allowed. There is no shade here, only what can be fashioned from scarves and plastic. Soldiers slowly try to work through the paperwork of the evacuees, but the conditions are getting stricter and more are failing the test of eligibility.
It's an agonizingly slow process, but finally we're allowed inside. Out on the tarmac, now safe, but the chaos continues.
I've been waiting for 2 days, yesterday since 3 a.m.
Yesterday since 3 a.m.
Yes.
2 days ago, 7 people died in the melee. Now the misery here is much more organized.
理由居然是因为塔利班。
At the British end of the process, the Taliban and paratrooper cooperation is actually working quite well. You couldn't make this up. Taliban fighters oversee the crowds from sea containers the paras put in to create a screening barrier.
Well, it's an incongruous sight having the Taliban right next to and, in fact, through the British lines. You can see in front it's much calmer here. The British military are able to process people, and I think what they've done is got the message through to the local people. If you're rioting and shouting and screaming and people are getting hurt, there's no way that this can be processed properly. So for now at least it's calm. I mean, there'll be anxiety, it'll change, it always does. But this is a lot better than yesterday, a lot better.
Containing the crowds is vital here.
Everyone has some sort of paperwork, but the system of checking has collapsed. Even passport holders from NATO countries have trouble getting through.
This is now a multinational nightmare, not just the US and Britain. In the crowds, they try to identify themselves to the soldiers and foreign services of countries they have links to. Their days are spent hoping someone will spot them and take them out of this hellhole and onto a plane.
Stay there! Stay there!
Sergeant Major Gaz McMahon has a man's passport. On a container, he calls him forward. A Talib fighter lets him through. He passes the passports back, but he has to wait. The shipping containers have been put on the road to keep the gates of the British compound clear. People funneled through.
Would-be evacuees go through several filters. To reach this point, they had to convince the Taliban they have the right paperwork to flee. Then they wait to be called forward by an interpreter working with the British. And this is the passageway to salvation, a narrow corridor created by placing a container feet from the airport wall. At the end, 2 members of the parachute regiment are in charge of admissions. When they get through, the final gauntlet is a question and answer session and a look at the paperwork to see if asylum really has been granted and safe passage out of here is theirs.
你一眼就可以看出谁过关了。
Wahid was a British Army translator in Helmand. Now he and his family are going to the UK. It's been agreed.
This is a very happy day in my life. Yeah.
Have you got family in Britain?
No.
So you're the first?
Yeah, I'm going to go to Britain. That's my first trip to Britain.
Well, do you know where you're going?
No, I don't know. I'm sure. I'm not sure where we'll be, but it will be Britain. And somewhere, yeah.
Inside the wire now and the start of processing before boarding.
We're going to get a search dog to come out and just do a quick search of there. You'll then get your bags back. Okay?
All the travellers have their bags checked. They're allowed 1 piece each. The runway and apron are now at full flow. This evacuation effort has to be. Thousands have been moved, even more need to be, but time is running out.
You can say it's a red line. President Biden announced this agreement that until 31st of August they would withdraw all their military forces. So if they extend it, that means they are extending occupation. While there is no need for that, I think they will deteriorate the relation, that will create mistrust between us. If they are intent on continuing the occupation, so it will provoke a reaction.
The U.S. Embassy apparently feeling the strain, issuing a final alert for American citizens to leave tonight, or they'd be on their own. Then, recalling it 30 minutes later.
This is now an extremely busy airfield. Every few minutes, new planes are coming in, and they are not just from the United States. We've seen them from the UK, Qatar, Australia, civilian aircraft. This is a truly global airlift.
US forces are set to withdraw by the 31st of August. It means the UK and other allies must go too, with evacuation flights ending even sooner.
人们怎么能不慌？
In the horrendous rush to get here, families have been split. Posters for missing children are dotted amongst the crowds. People search for their loved ones in a daze of panic. But this is a tough environment. Only a few will make the flights. Only some will go as a complete family. And nobody knows how long they have. It is purgatory.
当喀布尔的夜幕降临，等候已久的班机终于出现，一连数日的担心受怕就要结束了。真是这样吗？
Then more moves and more waiting. There's no fixed time for how long it takes. Some are Afghan Americans. Others are seeking asylum. Most have just one bag to start their new lives.
We've now landed in Doha, Qatar. This has been a long journey for the Afghans. It has also been a very emotional one. Yes, they're now safe. They will be processed here, some going to the United States, others to different countries. But many also know they may never see their homeland again.
Joining these long lines by the runway, shuffling between a life left behind and an unknown new one. These are the fortunate few, for whom promises made by politicians have been kept.